Midnight pressed on the riverfront block as a phone on Alex Mercer's desk vibrated with a hidden number and a whisper that hissed, "They know where you are," before drowning in static. The room seemed to shrink as street sirens thinned into a cold hush and the old clock skipped a beat that no one else heard. Alex crossed the alley to the fire escape and scanned the empty street, where a scream ripped the dark and then vanished like breath on glass. Rowan Hale stood in a reflection only, a flicker in a diner window, and the reflection smiled without moving. "Leave it where it fell," the whisper returned from nowhere, and the line ended with a soft click that felt like a door. On cracked asphalt, a brass token lay marked with tight, jagged symbols that bent shadows at the edges. Alex knelt and said, "Harper Vale, if you can hear me, I'm not leaving." A wind off the river rolled grease paper and peppered ash against the token, as if the street exhaled. A cruiser turned the corner and then hesitated, its lights off as if it were listening too. The street kept its secrets while Alex traced the token's edge with a gloved thumb and weighed the risk of moving it at all. Detective Raymond Kincaid stepped from the unlit cruiser and watched with the quiet of bad memories. Kincaid said, "You got here fast," and the word sounded like an accusation that had studied patience. A diner cook wiped condensation and stared as if the window could answer for the night. The river pushed a metallic smell across the block, and the distant refinery sighed like an animal learning to sleep. Alex said, "Harper called me earlier," and the admission put gravity in the rain. Kincaid's eyes drifted to the symbol, and then to Alex as if the order mattered. Somewhere a door slammed, and the echo traveled the alley like a rumor with a deadline. The token felt heavier than brass, as if the street wanted it back. The diner door chimed, and Rowan Hale crossed the threshold with a shadow that seemed to arrive first. Rowan said, "Leave it," and a busboy flinched as if a glass broke somewhere he couldn't see. The cook muttered about closing, but the neon wrote its red script across Rowan's cheek without permission. Alex stayed in the doorway and measured the distance to the token as if it were a fuse. Kincaid tilted his head and said, "We're not playing scavenger hunt." Rowan's smile came and went like a heartbeat on a faulty monitor. A woman at the corner booth asked for more coffee, and the pot steamed in answer. The river wind crept under the door and scattered napkins, drawing a thin white path toward the street. Rowan said, "If you move it, someone else moves you." Alex lifted the token into a clear bag and felt the air change, thin as a held breath in a vault. Kincaid said, "Chain of custody," and produced a form that had seen storms. The symbols cut light like teeth and refused to settle into meaning. Rowan drifted to the window and studied the reflection instead of the street, as if the glass kept a more honest record. A siren approached, then thought better of it, and the sound curved away into warehouse canyons. Alex said, "Harper left this to be found," and the words did not feel like comfort. The cook shut off the neon and the room lost 10 degrees of courage. Kincaid's pen scratched the paper, and the ink looked heavier than ink should. Rowan said, "Found and watched are the same thing tonight." The missing flyer on the pole bled its edges, while the river wind wrote and erased the night in loops. Harper Vale's photo held a smile that looked borrowed from a safer year. Alex said, "This started before the call," and the admission weighed the block like wet wool. Kincaid's radio crackled and then died as if it remembered a promise. Rowan traced the utility map on the pole with one finger, stopping where the symbol should have been printed but wasn't. A taxi slowed, considered the corner, and changed its mind. Somewhere above, a security camera blinked and forgot to sleep. Rowan said, "Harper is not hiding from you," and the wind pinned the flyer flat for one long second. Then the paper lifted again, and the corner tore like a timed answer. Alex Mercer sat in the dim precinct office, the walls humming with failing fluorescent lights, while Detective Raymond Kincaid shuffled papers that looked older than the desk. Kincaid said, "You're not on this case, but it seems the case found you." Alex leaned forward, eyes fixed on the file with Harper Vale's name stamped across the cover. The clock ticked and dragged as if time slowed for bad news. Oh! Rain rattled against the barred windows, forcing shadows to dance across the walls like restless intruders. Kincaid slid a photo across the desk, Harper's face marked with a date that shouldn't exist. Alex whispered, "This isn't just a witness, this is someone marked." Kincaid's hand hovered, as though he wanted to take the photo back, but didn't. The office air smelled of coffee gone stale and paperwork too long forgotten. Every detail in the room made Alex feel like the truth was being boxed away in drawers no one wanted open. Alex left the precinct and stepped into streets soaked by relentless rain, neon reflecting off puddles that looked like broken glass. Maya Brooks waited under a sagging awning, eyes darting with the tension of secrets. She said, "I shouldn't be here, but Harper trusted me." Alex steadied his voice. "Then help me find out what's been buried." The night pressed heavy as thunder rolled between rooftops, making the street tremble with its echo. Maya handed over a folded piece of paper, its edges warped from her grip. She said, "There's an address scribbled here, but don't say I gave it to you." Alex caught her hand trembling, though her face tried to stay composed. The rain eased for a breath, and then returned sharper, like it resented their exchange. A cab passed, splashing water against the curb, carrying away the sound of Maya's quickened breath. The folded paper led Alex to a locked storage facility on the edge of the industrial district. Corrugated doors lined the hall like steel coffins, each padlocked and numbered. Evan Reed stumbled into view, clutching a backpack as if it were armor. He said, "You shouldn't be here this late." Alex replied, "Neither should you." Evan shifted, voice low, "I saw Harper here 2 nights ago." The sound of dripping water echoed like a metronome, marking danger. Alex pressed for more, but Evan's eyes flicked to shadows moving behind the far row of units. His shoulders tensed as if waiting for hands to drag him into the dark. Alex whispered, "Stay close," but Evan's grip on the backpack suggested running would win. Inside one of the units, boxes stood stacked like tombstones, dust lifting with each cautious step. Maya whispered, "This doesn't look like storage. This looks like evidence hidden in plain sight." Alex unlatched a box and revealed case files stamped with missing person numbers that stretched back decades. The air grew colder, as though the room carried every name written inside. Alex said, "Harper knew these were here. That's why they vanished." Maya's breath caught, her hand covering her mouth, eyes locked on one file labeled with Harper's name. Somewhere outside, a chain rattled against a door as if testing their resolve. Alex looked to her and said, "We don't have time to doubt." The chain rattling grew into footsteps, deliberate and measured. Alex pressed against the wall, motioning for silence. Maya clutched the file, while Evan crouched near the entrance, eyes fixed on the shifting shadows. A figure paused just beyond the doorway, breathing heavy, then turned away. Alex whispered, "They know we're inside." Evan whispered back, "Then we're already too late." The silence that followed felt longer than the night itself. The storm outside reached its peak, thunder shaking the metal walls, rain hammering the roof like a warning no one would heed. Alex steadied his breath and said, "We take the file, we move now." The decision carried weight heavier than the boxes that surrounded them, each one filled with buried truths. Alex Mercer walked beneath buzzing street lamps where shadows stretched too long for comfort. The file clutched in his hand felt like a live wire ready to burn. A figure leaned against a rusted mailbox, watching without speaking. Jordan Pike stepped into the light with a half smirk that hid more than it revealed. Jordan said, "You were in over your head, but lucky for you, I like drowning games." Alex stiffened. "Why are you here?" The night hissed with wind between buildings, carrying scraps of paper that chased their own ghosts. Jordan tapped his coat pocket, where a burner phone glowed faint red. "Because Harper's trail is colder than the river, and you need heat." Alex hesitated, the silence chewing at his resolve, then finally nodded. The uneasy alliance was struck in the quiet, one step closer to answers neither trusted. The burner phone buzzed and displayed a string of coordinates tied to an abandoned rail yard. Alex said, "This better not be a trap." Jordan shrugged. "Depends who you're asking." Freight cars loomed like darkened monoliths, their graffiti-scrawled surfaces whispering forgotten names. Evan Reed trailed reluctantly, shifting his backpack as if it held all the protection he owned. The rail yard smelled of rust and wet steel, every sound amplified by emptiness. Alex spotted fresh footprints in mud near a cargo container. He said, "Harper was here." Jordan knelt, touched the print and muttered, "Not long ago." A horn wailed far away, echoing like a funeral hymn for secrets yet unearthed. The coordinates promised clues, but danger lingered in every shadow. In the corner of a rail yard office, flickering monitors revealed encrypted maps filled with strange sigils. Dr. Eliza North hunched over a keyboard, eccentric eyes darting like she was chasing ghosts through data. She muttered, "This isn't a map, it's a lock." Alex stepped forward and said, "Harper was tracing these symbols." Eliza's laughter cracked like static, unsettling and sharp. "Tracing," she said, "no decoding, and whoever left this wanted it found." The monitors stuttered and filled with static, the sigils rearranging into a pattern resembling the brass token. Evan whispered, "That can't be coincidence." Eliza turned with a sly smile. "Nothing here is." The room buzzed with secrets buried in code too old to belong to this age. Outside, the air was heavy with silence, the kind that warned before it broke. Silas Ward stood in the shadows beyond the rail yard fence, a figure who watched but never spoke. His eyes followed every move, calm and unblinking. Alex sensed the weight of being observed and muttered, "We're not alone." Jordan turned, hand near his jacket pocket, ready for steel if it came to that. Silas shifted only slightly, enough for the dim light to mark his face before he vanished again into darkness. Evan whispered, "Who was that?" Alex exhaled slowly. "Someone who never misses anything." The unease clung tighter than the fog, turning the rail yard into a stage with an audience they couldn't see. The group huddled back inside, the monitors now frozen on the brass symbol, glowing faintly. Eliza traced the lines with her fingertip, her voice soft but urgent. "This is a network. Hidden, old, and watching everything." Alex said, "Harper knew, and that's why they disappeared." The words carried weight none of them wanted. Jordan leaned back, smirking but not smiling. So either Harper's running from them, or Harper's one of them. Evan shook his head, voice breaking. "Harper wouldn't." Silence filled the gaps as the storm outside pressed against thin walls. The rail yard suddenly felt less like a place of answers, and more like a cage. Alex clenched his fist and muttered, "Then we need to find out who locked the door." The storm cleared, but left the city painted in slick reflections, every corner gleaming like a trap. Alex Mercer moved cautiously through the industrial district, guided by Rowan Hale's cryptic instructions. Rowan said, "What you're looking for isn't buried, is disguised." The words lingered with the weight of both truth and threat. A signal tower loomed overhead, its base covered in the same jagged symbols found on the brass token. Alex muttered, "So it's been here hiding in plain sight." The air vibrated faintly as though the tower hummed with secrets older than its steel frame. Evan Reed shifted nervously, his backpack tighter than ever against his chest. Rowan's eyes reflected the cold light as he added, "But once you've seen it, there's no unseeing." Silence pressed down, and Alex felt the street itself hold its breath. Inside a rusting maintenance shed near the tower, they discovered blueprints pinned beneath cracked glass. Alex traced his finger along the map, and found matching symbols etched over city water lines. Maya Brooks entered quietly, face drawn and pale. She whispered, "These lines connect half the city, like a hidden circuit." Alex nodded, and Harper was trying to expose it. The shed smelled of mildew and machine oil, every creak of the beams threatening collapse. Rowan leaned against the wall, his voice dry. "Knowledge like this doesn't stay hidden unless someone powerful wants it that way." The realization thickened the air until breathing felt like betrayal. Evan muttered, "If this is true, we're all already in danger." The shed door slammed, and Detective Raymond Kincaid appeared, soaked trenchcoat clinging to him like regret. He said, "You're in over your jurisdiction, Mercer." Alex countered. Harper trusted me, not you. Kincaid's jaw tightened, his eyes carrying both fatigue and fire. He pulled out a weathered folder, tossed it onto the table and said, "You think you're uncovering something? You're stepping into graves that should have stayed closed." The folder slid open, showing photos of vanished people spanning years, all tied to the same symbol. Silence wrapped around them, until even the bulb seemed to dim. Rowan smirked faintly. "Looks like we're not the first to chase this ghost." The moment cracked the fragile trust already splitting them apart. Outside, the night thickened with fog, as if the city wished to erase their steps. Evan whispered, "We're being followed," eyes flicking toward the shifting mist. Silas Ward emerged briefly, watching from the periphery, with an intensity that carved silence sharper than knives. His presence felt like a judgment unspoken. Alex tightened his fists, murmuring, "He's been shadowing us since the rail yard." Kincaid barked, "Ignore him. Ward doesn't act unless it matters." Rowan chuckled, "That should terrify you more." The fog swallowed Silas again, leaving only the echo of boots against wet pavement. The group realized the hunt had grown more dangerous than the truth itself. They retreated into a warehouse, its hollow interior echoing with every step. Crates loomed in rows like silent judges, and the air carried the metallic taste of secrets unspoken. Maya spread the blueprints across a crate, whispering, "This whole network runs beneath the streets." Alex studied the lines and said, "Then the conspiracy is built into the city itself." Kincaid shook his head, muttering, "And it's bigger than you can handle." Evan's voice trembled. "So, what chance do we have?" Rowan leaned forward, his tone low but sharp. "The kind that comes when you realize you're already a part of it." The warehouse seemed to tighten around them, the conspiracy no longer an idea but a living shadow breathing down their necks. Alex Mercer followed Rowan Hale through a service tunnel that smelled of iron and old rain, the walls tattooed with the same jagged symbols. Jordan Pike killed his flashlight and said, "You will want your eyes wide for this." Dr. Eliza North hurried ahead, clutching a drive like a relic in a storm. Detective Raymond Kincaid muttered, "I hate basements that hum." The tunnel opened into a forgotten switch room, where panels blinked like sedated stars. Eliza said, "The network isn't a myth. It's municipal." Alex felt the city tilt, as if its pulse lived in the conduit at his feet. Evan Reed whispered, "If Harper mapped this, why run?" Rowan looked back, unreadable, and said, "Maybe running was the map." A distant relay clicked, and the lights arranged themselves into the brass symbol. The room answered a question no one had asked out loud. A projector sputtered to life, throwing Harper Vale onto a peeling wall with a stare that steadied storms. Harper said, "If you're here, you found what I hid in plain sight." The voice was measured, carrying the ache of choices that bruise even when right. Alex stepped closer, hands half raised, as if a screen could be caught. Harper said, "They blackmail the city with what the city confesses to itself." Eliza breathed, "Telemetry as leverage." Kincaid rubbed his brow and whispered, "I missed this when it mattered." Harper continued, "I vanished to pull the cord you couldn't see." Rowan watched the edges of the image like they might bite. Evan said, "You planned your own disappearance." Harper said, "I planned a proof." The projector popped, and the symbol flared like a warning that arrived on time. The feed cut to a second video, grainier and colder, showing council chambers after hours. A figure signed documents with the calm of weathered sin. Eliza froze the frame, enhanced a reflection and said, "Councilman Victor Hale." Kincaid exhaled like a confession breaking surface. Alex said, "So the network has a face." Rowan's jaw tightened, and the room took notice. Harper's recorded voice returned. "He launders fear into policy," Jordan muttered, "and policy into immunity." The symbol overlaid the city map, tracing fibers through utilities, contracts, and hush. Alex felt blame reach for Rowan and stop short. Rowan said, "Blood is not a vote." The silence that followed measured the distance between family and fact. The building shuddered as locks engaged, the network recognizing trespass the way a body rejects a splinter. Emergency lights bled red across metal and fear. Kincaid said, "We triggered a silent alarm." Eliza thrust the drive into a console and said, "Give me 60 seconds or give me a miracle." Rowan stepped between Alex and the door and said, "If you walk now, you lose the thread." Evan's breath quickened, counting heartbeats he could not spare. Alex said, "We stay until we understand the shape of this." Jordan watched the corridor and murmured, "Shapes can have teeth." The console barked text like rain, then spit out a directory labeled with missing case numbers. Eliza said, "Harper seeded a back door with their initials." The door bolts groaned like waking animals. The screen flashed a live message tagged with Harper's signature, not past but present, and the room forgot how to breathe. Harper said, "You're close, but you can't dump it all." Alex asked the air, "Then what do we do?" Harper said, "Cut one artery, not the heart." Eliza interpreted, "Expose the coercion nodes, spare the personal bycatch." Kincaid nodded, relief mixing with dread like oil and water. Rowan said, "Victor will survive a glancing blow." Harper answered, "Not if the blow maps to his hands." Evan whispered, "Tell us where." Coordinates scrolled, ending beneath a municipal records annex that wore innocence like a pressed suit. Jordan said, "Then we go." The hum deepened, as if the city listened and decided the game would hurt. Midnight drowned the municipal annex in silence, broken only by the drip of rainwater from gutters and the hum of power beneath its skin. Alex Mercer pressed against the wall, scanning the floodlit courtyard. Rowan Hale whispered, "The annex isn't guarded, it's bait." Jordan Pike smirked, "Then we're already hooked." Dr. Eliza North pulled a tablet from her coat, tapping at encrypted schematics. She muttered, "The server vault sits under the archives, sealed tighter than a treasury." Detective Raymond Kincaid said, "If Harper's right, this is where Victor keeps his leverage." Evan Reed's voice trembled, "Then we're breaking into the city's memory." Alex steadied his breath, eyes narrowed. "We end it here or it never ends." The annex loomed above them like a cathedral built for secrets. Inside, the annex corridors smelled of old paper and wax polish, the air stale with bureaucracy. Alex whispered, "Too quiet." Eliza guided them past shelves, towering with decades of files, her tablet pulsing with a soft glow. Rowan touched the wall, tracing hidden conduits beneath the plaster. Kincaid muttered, "It's all dressed to look ordinary." Evan stumbled slightly, catching a falling box, papers scattering with names that made the air heavier. Jordan scanned the hallway and said, "This place is wired like a nest." A faint buzz came from below, vibrations through the tiles. Alex said, "Vaults under us, we go down." Every step deeper felt like trespassing inside history itself. They descended a stairwell of steel steps that rattled under their weight into a chamber humming with locked servers. The vault glowed faintly with blue light, cables snaking like veins into the floor. Eliza whispered, "It's alive." Alex studied the panels, then looked to Rowan. Rowan said, "If you want the truth, you'll bleed for it." Kincaid muttered, "I bled once already, and it bought nothing." Evan hugged his backpack, whispering, "If Harper was right, this is the artery." Jordan drew a pry tool, grinning, "Then let's cut it open." The air thickened, humming louder, as though the vault knew it was being challenged. Alex stepped forward, voice low, "No more hiding." Alarms erupted as Eliza breached the system, the vault lights flashing crimson. Sirens echoed through the annex, vibrating in their bones. Kincaid barked, "We've got company." Rowan drew closer to Alex, murmuring, "Victor won't come himself, hell send shadows." Evan shouted, "What do we do?" Alex steadied his voice, "We hold them off until Eliza pulls what we need." Eliza's fingers blurred across the keyboard, sweat on her brow as she muttered, "Almost there." Jordan braced the door with a steel bar, smirking despite the tension. The vault's hum grew louder, drowning out the sirens. Alex felt the weight of the city pressing on their shoulders, every choice carrying teeth. The vault screen blinked and spat out files tagged with Victor Hale's name, proof threaded into every line. Eliza gasped, "We've got him." Alex's heart hammered, but Rowan's face shadowed with conflict. Kincaid stared at the name and whispered, "I should have stopped him years ago." Evan clutched his backpack tighter, whispering, "Then this ends tonight." The door shook under heavy fists outside, time collapsing into heartbeats. Jordan said, "We need to move or die with the evidence." Alex grabbed the drive, voice like steel. "Then we move." The sirens howled louder as the vault door groaned, seconds from breaking. They had the truth, but escape was no longer guaranteed. The annex vomited alarms into the night as Alex Mercer led the sprint through rain and sirens. Jordan Pike said, "Left alley, then cut the lights." Dr. Eliza North hugged the drive like a fragile future. Detective Raymond Kincaid glanced back and growled, "They're 2 corners behind." Evan Reed stumbled, then found his feet when Alex steadied his shoulder. Rowan Hale kept pace, eyes scanning rooftops as if the dark could shoot. A floodlight swept the brick and turned steam into ghosts. Alex said, "No broadcast yet, we slice the right vein." Eliza nodded, breath thin. "Harper's protocol protects the innocent." They vanished into a service tunnel that smelled like secrets kept wet. The tunnel ended beneath a shuttered courthouse where Councilman Victor Hale waited like a verdict wearing shoes. Victor said, "Return what you stole, and I'll forget your names." Kincaid's voice cracked, "You made the city your witness and your weapon." Victor smiled, without warmth. "I made it efficient." Rowan stepped forward and said, "Blood doesn't vote, but it remembers." The stillness sharpened until even dust listened. Alex held the drive and said, "We cut nodes that hurt people, not the city." Eliza raised her tablet, keys whispering like rain. Victor's calm thinned, and he called for men who stayed in the shadows. Jordan said, "They only come if he thinks he's losing." The courthouse lights fluttered like doubt. Eliza executed Harper's filter, and the interface bloomed with lines that lit like arteries. She said, "Coercion nodes only, personal spill scrubbed." Alex nodded and pressed confirm, while Kincaid kept watch. Victor hissed, "You are children with matches." Rowan answered, "You built the tinder." The data surged up to mirrored servers. Eliza had prepared. Jordan said, "We just cut your leash." Evan whispered, "Then we run." The upload bar reached the end and locked with a chime that felt like sunrise. Victor's face drained of weathered confidence. Somewhere above, a dozen phones began to ring. Sirens shifted from hunting to converging as unmarked cars spilled hardened light onto the steps. Kincaid walked out first and handed a statement that weighed like penance. He said, "This is my name, and my fault." Alex followed with the drive, and a single demand: protect the bystanders. Victor stood between cameras and consequence, jaw set like stone, learning to crack. Rowan watched him with a look that spoke a lifetime. Eliza said, "If you bury this, it grows back meaner." Evan stared at the courthouse dome, and finally breathed. Jordan chuckled, "They hate losing on tape." The doors swallowed Victor, and the echoes judged him louder than words. By nightfall the city settled, but it did not sleep. Alex returned home and found a small parcel resting against his door. Rowan's card lay on top, with nothing written. Inside, a brass token waited, etched with a symbol almost the same, and not the same. Eliza called and said, "Version numbers." Kincaid texted, "Some files sealed themselves." Jordan added, "The game resets when it's cornered." Evan left a message that sounded like hope, learning to stand. Alex turned the token in his palm and listened to the building breathe. He said, "Harper, where did you go?" To a room that answered with quiet. The city's lights blinked once like a code and held.